Everything we know, from people and ants to stars and galaxies to quarks and atoms, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer inside an even bigger universe. Ancient philosophers said that the universe is a dream that we're waiting to wake up from. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. All cultural items, from the dreams of our rodent-like ancestors, to books, to television shows, are merely permutations of the reality we think we live in. Today's age of computers and video games places simulations at the center of our cultural consciousness. A select group of us perform simulations for fun and profit, and we call them games, role-playing and otherwise. We live to run simulations. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulations.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Simulationist podcast. It is the 131th iteration of the show. We're recording it on the 8th of March.
131th iteration?
What did I say?
131th.
Yeah?
131st iteration?
Yeah. I don't know.
Whichever way you want to conjugate your numbers between ordinal and cardinal.
Yeah, 8th of March, 2015.
This marks it as my brother's birthday. Happy birthday, Adam. This is from co-host extraordinaire, Ryan Kirkby. And I suppose the, proper, host.
Like the guy who says the first thing that you hear in the thing.
Every week,
That's me. Josh Trelevin, that's who I am.
You wishing a happy birthday, too?
And I wish Adam a very hearty happy birthday.
But not too hearty, because, hangover shouldn't last 2 days.
Yeah. Well, hangovers are not fun.
No. They're the educational lesson of life.
The part that comes before hangovers are pretty fun, so...
I do remember plenty of fun experiences that were marred by a wicked hangover the next day. And in one case, actual, I believe, alcohol poisoning. It was pretty bad. I've never drank that bad ever since. I learned that lesson. All I need is one.
Well, I've had a few bad I call them bad experiences with alcohol, but they're really just learning experience with alcohol. I mean, they're not, I didn't break anything, fortunately, so...
You never destroyed your life with them. So that's better than some.
Yeah. Okay, so, off to a great start with talking about alcohol
the
and
deep
birthdays.
Depression of alcoholic abuse.
And reaching middle age for all of us. And
he's only turning 34.
So that's still less than middle age.
Well, I mean, how they say it is 40's the new 20 these days.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
sure.
Yeah. He's not even 20. He shouldn't even be driving after he's drinking.
Yeah, he shouldn't even be drinking.
There are some people who say it doesn't matter what age you are, you shouldn't be drinking, but whatever, they're kind of prudes.
Anyways, okay, we'll make the whole podcast just about Adam, and we'll just talk about him.
This is our birthday present to him. So what have you been up to this week, Josh?
Oh, what games have I been up to? Or, simulations, or what?
What works of fiction have entranced you within these last 7 days?
I watched the third Hobbit movie, finally.
Oh, you liked it?
I did. I loved it. It definitely... It doesn't hold together as a story. I have to admit that. It doesn't make sense. But
not on its own, but it is like a full, movie's length of payoff of all the everything there for the first two movies.
I loved so many little scenes in it. I loved the stupid little comic book jumping and I just enjoyed that. I mean, the jumping over things and falling off cliffs and being fine. Well, I'm used to that now after the other two movies.
Yeah. Or, how quickly the dwarves managed to, barricade up that wall with just, rubble stone. It's you wake up the next day and bam. It doesn't look as good as the rest of the wall, but it is bang, solid there, and then you got little talking tube areas for it. Yeah, that looks like dwarven architecture to me. That is dwarven work.
Yeah, I like it. Did Bilbo, I don't know if he picked up any stones or anything, so basically they had 13 dwarves working, right?
Yeah, it's just 13 dwarves, one night, new wall, done. Bam. It's I dig that, man. That shows dwarven hardiness and their work ethic. They probably didn't even sleep that night. Which makes you wonder, do dwarves have some sort of subterranean plant equivalent to the coffee bean? Why are they so industrious? They can't just be like, oh yeah, we like to work all the time. Work is fun. Huh? No. Like where's their like some like underground coffee fungal bean thing?
Well, the way coffee functions is it actually alters. Like humans are an above ground creature, so we operate according to the cycles of the sun. And we do day and night, and sort of our brains release chemicals. Okay, here's a chemical you need. This is your wake-up chemical. I don't know what they're called, but there's a wake-up chemical and there's a sleep chemical. You got your
serotonins and your endorphins.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Epinephrines.
And your brain generally sort of regulates itself. It's like, now we're going to be awake, now we're going to be asleep.
Yeah, like a 24-and-a-half-hour cycle. Like, what the heck is up with that? And shoddy engineering.
The only thing caffeine does is it sort of like tweaks that a little bit. It's like, oh, now you're going to get a little extra, at this point in the day when otherwise you might be feeling a little sluggish. Caffeine just sort of gives a little nudge your brain back into a wakefulness. So if you were a physiologically developed creature that sort of developed underground or was created, as in the case of the dwarves, created by an angel underground, you might actually have a physiology that sort of like just lets you be awake generally when you need to.
Here's a theory for you. What if alcohol affects dwarves the same way caffeine affects humans?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How's that sound?
Well, okay, if we're going to go on, I have a little bit of a pet peeve with this, because I always feel that, like, there's stereotypes, like, imbued with alcohol, back to alcohol, of course, but there's stereotypes about, like, getting drunk and partying and, like, having fun and all these things. But if it turned out that alcohol had a different effect on you, then, of course, none of those stereotypes would apply.
Well, I mean, think about this. You go back to the first movie of The Hobbit stuff, and the dwarves, they've been drinking, they have a good meal and all that, and then they're throwing plates around, nothing smashes. Does that sound like the work of 13 drunk, stubby-fingered people to you?
Well, maybe the wizard was, like, secretly sort of
Gandalf is
magic in there.
I think it was the magic of singing. And either the amazing dwarven liver to process that sort of stuff. Because in Dwarf Fortress, they make the joke dwarves can't handle regular water. They got to put alcohol in there for them to drink it. Yeah. Otherwise, unless a dwarf is sick, they will never drink water.
Well, here's what I'm okay with. I'm okay with alcohol having a less pronounced effect on dwarves, so they either have to drink more of it or to get really seriously buzzed or drunk. I'm okay with that being, with alcohol having a different effect on it. What I'm not okay with is when people say, oh, well, they have to drink, or alcohol has the opposite effect, like alcohol is a stimulant for them. So I don't like that, because I like to tell stories about, like with dwarves and stuff. Like if I have a dwarf in my world, I like to tell that story. Oh, he's a drunk and he likes to drink, and this is the effect that drinking has on him. So I like it to have sort of a predictable, iconic effect.
You can't just work something weird like dwarves, their liver is too efficient, so they have to put in some sort of slow poison to make things work a little bit better. Otherwise, they'll process things all incorrectly. But you give a dwarf mustard. You put mustard on a dwarven sauerkraut hot dog, and they get just absolutely smash drunk, effectively.
Maybe, I might be okay with that. And I'm also okay with if dwarves are absolute have to have alcohol to survive, but at the same time it still gets them drunk a little bit. So they have to there's a bit of a balance. There's a dependency.
Fine line.
And they need enough to function, but if they take too much, then they have a problem.
I think you could use their drinking as an interesting way of showing the history of humanity, sort of thing. Because I don't like the concept of dwarves have to drink alcohol, because it's well, then how did they survive long enough to brew the first stuff?
Well, they might have co-evolved with some kind of brewing process.
Some sort of booze cow? You just milk the cow and out comes fermented, and oh boy. Unfortunately, they milked all the booze cows dry, and now they got to create it artificially.
Well, you should know this. Humans actually are naturally lactose intolerant, and they actually had to develop, we had to evolve a tolerance to cow's milk.
It was just, some people were not, they just had that quirk of genetics, and it's hey, this allows us to have all sorts of
nutrients.
Another
word for evolution.
Well, that's the thing is evolution starts with the quirk of genetics. It's like some people can do this, some people can't. And then, it's like, hey, if you can, all of a sudden you can have all these extra nutrients. You can grow up healthy. Your kids can grow up healthy. You wind up having more kids as opposed to those sickly kids that can't handle their milk. And so then the genetic ratio changes. Instead of like a 5% milk tolerance, it becomes like, we'll say 55% versus, to up to like a 98%, tolerance of milk. And only some weird people aren't tolerant anymore.
Yep.
And that's a prime example of microevolution.
Yeah, sure.
Where the species doesn't change, but their ability to do one thing, like process lactose without, getting horribly gassy or nauseous, does change.
Yeah, well, and like, can you imagine the same sort of scenario happening in like a race of
some sort of proto-dwarves in this case, pre-modern dwarves.
500,000 years ago, sort of moved underground and started, brewing alcohol and whatever, and they just, maybe they're very primitive cave dwarfs, literally cave dwarfs, living in the shallow caves, and then they gradually get deeper and deeper and sort of develop more and more advanced society over, a long period of time, and eventually they can't function without a little bit of alcohol. It's still too much alcohol will still get them drunk, but also they need that bare minimum.
Because, historically, drinking alcohol was better for your health than drinking the natural water sources.
That's true too, because you would
clean water sources being horrible, nasty little sources of infestations. You can get all sorts of crazy bugs.
Yeah.
Whereas, the brewing process, anything that wasn't good, and pure water winds up, like going horrible, yeasty, disgusting. That no one's going to drink that, man. You'd be dying of thirst before you consider drinking that stuff.
Although evolution again, the guys who do drink it might have a bit of a problem. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing, though. Is like at that point, after the whole fermentation process goes through, it'd be so bad, it's basically a poison. And you can argue, alcohol's a poison anyways. No, this is like, will kill you now poison versus 20 years down the road, your liver gives up poison.
So you can imagine, like, maybe these dwarves who, like, moved into the caves and stuff, their only source of
clean water
was
through a purification thing.
So they're basically required to, and it might not be. I mean, we're talking like it might be mushrooms or what did you say? Underground bean of some kind.
Well, I was thinking, like a coffee bean, so it'd be like some sort of like shroom bean, some sort of fungal pod bean that grows up. They pick it, that gives them their caffeine high, and let's get to work for another 17 hours.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that fits the stereotype of dwarves, that they're very, like, endurant. They have a good endurance.
Yeah, but I mean, like, so then it could, like, act like a cocoa leaf thing, too, because the old story goes, like, it's like, I'm hungry and I'm living in South America, before, the invaders and conquistadors. So, you just get yourself some cocoa leaf and chew on that, and it numbs the body, especially if you got tooth pain, too. So in that case, dwarves have a special, like, subterranean plant that acts as, like, some combination between the numbing effect of fatigue for, the cocoa leaf, as well as the, like, the caffeine high. Cocoa can give you that caffeine bump. So maybe it's some sort of, like, choco cocoa, that grows in the limestone chalk caverns.
A chalky sort of, chalky chews.
Okay, yeah. I'm digging this.
All right. Well, we've invented a new thing, I guess, some sort of.
So okay, now the dwarves don't always have to be eating stuff like fungus underground. They got some sort of like plant that'll actually. Oh, hey, maybe it tastes good for them, like actual like chocolate cocoa sort of flavor.
Yeah. Well, have you ever eaten cat food?
Sadly, yes. On a dare. They salt that stuff, right?
I guess they must.
They salt it on purpose so that your cat will eat the cat food, then like lap up a bunch of water, so that you look at the cat and go, oh, look at the cat, likes it so much, cat's eating and drinking healthy, wee. When cats are naturally like a desert-style species, properly fed, a cat doesn't really need to drink anything. And this is why a lot of elderly cats have problems with their
urinary tracts.
The whole thing, from tip to tail, the whole urinary system is just riddled with pollutants from all the extra salts they wind up taking that they just are not naturally supposed to urinate out so much. And now you know the horrible truth behind cat food. If you can afford it, you're actually better off giving your cat natural foods and that sort of thing.
Like the same stuff humans eat?
Yeah, Well, maybe a step lower than that. Like if it's the tuna, it's like, I'm not going to eat this tuna myself, but it's, hey, it's still decent stuff. It's not rotten or anything. Give it to Whiskers. It's better for them, less salts in their system.
Yeah.
This is being cat talk.
But
no, this is still Simulationist. We haven't converted yet.
I brought up cat food because it tastes, and I think you've just sort of blown that out of the water a little bit, but
it's salty as bugger all, man.
My point is different species have different tastes, and so dwarves might find different other things tasty.
Cats can't taste sweet, is it?
Yeah.
They're lacking the proper ability to taste it. Now, I think we may have done that to them. Sorry. Selective breeding issues are bad.
Yeah, although I don't think cats haven't changed as much as dogs, for example.
No.
Because I've looked up, I was curious, I looked up wildcats on the internet, and there still are such a thing as the African wildcat, which looks a lot pretty much like the domestic cat, except it's wild.
Well, I mean, there are some fuzzy, stupid-looking cats out there.
Yeah, that's true. Some of them are
purposely bred for a very flat face. It's like, ew, no.
So cute.
Something so fuzzy would never exist naturally in the wild, sort of thing. So yeah, there has been some directed work on them, but not as bad as dogs. That oh boy, did we break dogs bad. Oh, we did bad there.
Okay, so yeah, I watched the Hobbit movie. I give it 12 dwarves.
Oh, which one died?
Oh, yeah. Spoiler alert.
Well, I mean, dude, the book's what? How old now? 80, 90 years?
Yeah, I guess it's old enough.
Well, sorry, the work here, the beginning of when he was doing the stuff would have marked it about 80 years now, I suppose. The actual publishing thing wasn't that far old, so.
No, if I had my choice of which dwarf should die... Actually, I like that Thorin dies. I like that the sort of...
It was redemption through death.
Yeah.
From his familial curse of greed.
I don't want any of the dwarves to die, but yeah, I don't want any of the...
Not even Bomber.
Yeah, because I like all the dwarves a lot. So yeah, I would have picked Thorin of all the dwarves to die. Yeah. So there's that. And the other thing I did was, I've just been doing some writing, and improv class was today, so I attended that, and that was fun. And I've been writing on my web series, which I think it might happen. I don't know. I've been talking about it for a while. I was just looking back through our notes for previous shows, and I think I first brought it up almost in our very first couple episodes. Well, an idea is a lot like an alcohol in that they both need time to properly ferment. You can't rush it, man. Indeed. Yeah. That's like the antifreeze solution. Makes it taste sweeter and it gets the effect happening, but it'll kill you. You force it. It's bad, man. Yeah. Well, yeah. So that's me. Well, should we switch over? And what have you been? Let's see. I've been working on a bit of a campaign, sort of adventure story for you. I won't give away too many spoilers because I haven't run it for you yet. Okay, that's happening later. Yes. It's not going to be that big of a thing. It's really more of a technical work. It's I look up the rules on a chase. I've been around since 2nd edition. I haven't seen proper rules on chase, and how to run a chase that seems good rather than just, roll, 2 20s until somebody drops of exhaustion, and then whoever did, wins the race. So this has got an interesting thing to it. I'm going to be enjoying that. They're doing something different this time around with the experience points as how they determine how challenging it is. They got a chart, so, an easy encounter for a first level, PC is 25 experience points, or about a 1/4 challenge rating. Mm-hmm. But what you do is if you take the amount of characters in your party and add those numbers together. So for, first level adventures is 100 for an easy encounter. Okay. And then you compare that to the amount of creatures in the encounter. So we'll say there's a Spectre. A Spectre is only challenge rating 1 around here. So it's that's 100 experience points. So that qualifies as, an easy, encounter. So you can work things up, and they got a multiplier for if you got 7 or 8 low power creatures, because it's still 7 or 8 more, attacks than the 1.
And so the whole thing works out. And I'm going to be having some interesting look at that and see how easy and smooth it plays out versus how much background design you really have to work for to have these encounters pre-planned. Should you pre-plan them as like a group sort of thing, in advance, or can you just like mix and match on the fly to add your numbers up and bam, there you go. So I'm going to be enjoying that and seeing how well that works. Other than that, I got some interesting work on Minecraft done this week. I'm building the library proper, so I'm effectively moving myself out of my current house.
Sure, yeah.
Because I got the Mistcraft stuff, and then I've got, the thaumatology stuff, and I'm moving that all down into the library. And I need some carpet, and I need some plants. I need tulips. I need colored tulips to make colored glass.
Okay, yeah.
Because like the wood I used is really dark. Like this is some dark wood paneling, so I need some colors to alleviate it. Maybe like a green carpeting. Although I kind of think a green carpeting might make it look like a pool table. Who's to say? We'll find out.
You could go lime green.
I might do that. Yeah, I'd do some lighter colors. So maybe some light blue. Because I've got a circle sort of design going on. I've got like a 7 square wide area where I've just completely flat surface where I could try and do some pixel art on there with some light colors. I'm gonna have to look up some pixel art that's 7 pixels wide for like designs and stuff and see what I can come up with. And just generally enjoy that. Other than that, I have been filling in a lot of space down in my caverns. Because of my quarry, I've got a lot of cobblestone, and I can get a lot of wood now that I've got, the tree capitator. So I've got the charcoal to turn the cobblestone into regular stone. It's like, well, what am I going to do with all this now? And I've got boxes upon boxes of supplies I do not need, but I can't bring myself to stop collecting them.
Yeah.
So I have to do something. So I'm backfilling and getting all sorts of materials, and I'm just generally being happy, just being a productive anti-dwarf. I mean, dwarves dig tunnels out there. I'm filling tunnels in the dirt. But I have come up with a bit of a block in my area.
Okay.
There's some nodes down under there for pretty decent nodes. I can get some decent types of the basic energy types for the thaumatology mod there. But I don't want to always have to go down and through this winding little labyrinth of tunnels to get to that just to charge up my wand again.
Right.
But I can surround it with glass and put a little lid on top, and then with enough magical energy, I can turn it into a small node in a jar and move it where I want.
Oh, okay.
Which is pretty groovy.
Yeah.
Except that I do not have a wand powerful enough to do to turn the glass into a jar sort of thing.
Right.
So I may have to go adventuring and try and find the magical wood I will need to make the stuff I want.
Yeah, okay.
So it's
Well,
like,
darn
darn it.
Oh, darn it, I have to go adventuring.
Well, it's like I got the adventuring I could do. I've got several cave systems to explore underneath the city, and I still haven't even started on the proper little prison area I want to make, my portal to the Nether area. And I do want to go to the Nether. I finally have an urge to do this sort of thing, to go there and check the thing out. But it's like there's so many things to do. I'm just one guy who's doing all sorts of stuff. Like I can only divide my attention so many ways, and admittedly, my daughter and my wife take first priority. So it's not like I can just sit down, like after work and then just, game away till, it's like, oh, hey, 2 a.m, get to bed. So I got to be a responsible father and husband.
Yeah.
Well, that said, I have been playing Clicker Heroes.
Yes.
It's one of the idle games sort of thing. And oh my god, I transcended my power limits this week. Like, they have like ancients, which is basically like taking a feat. This ancient allows you to do this. So, like your skills cool down, at a faster rate, so you can use them quicker. Or, better chance at getting the souls you can use to spend other areas. And yeah, I've been, like spending some and then just re-rolling, because the 4, you only get like a chance of 4 out of all of them. And I was trying to find 1 or 2, and it's like, oh, the one I really wanted finally came up. It's called the Juggernaut. The more you click, the more combo points you get. And for every combo point you gain like a multiplier to your damage per second.
Alright.
I have an auto clicker. So, I got it, and then okay, so I put some points into the Juggernaut, and the more points you put into it, the more powerful the combo comes every time you add up your combo. And so today, I got up, did my stuff, put the whole thing on there, started my auto clicker up, and then I left for work.
Oh yeah.
And I got home and I was like, if I was good before, like a bold adventure, I was a titan when I got back. I was doing damage like crazy. I was just blowing through entire levels. Like every 100 levels, there's a boss, a special unique guy you got to fight.
Mm-hmm.
I went through 2 of them without knowing because I was doing some notes up for the campaign thing, and I go, okay, I do this here, and it's like level 700. Wasn't I on like 4 something before? It's like, oops, I missed these bosses. It's like, well, I guess I should have, been paying attention, but I got it. I just, like steamrolled through. I know Juggernaut from the Marvel comics and all that stuff, and yeah, he's powerful. He's tough enough to go toe to toe with the Hulk. That's his power level. But I never got the impression of just how powerful the Juggernaut was until I got the Ancient of it, where it showed me the more you click, like the more you work, the more you get back, the more tougher you become. And so it's just like, oh my goodness, the Juggernaut was a really dangerous enemy in Marvel. My goodness, why couldn't they have shown like that you, like most of the time, like when the X-Men fight the Juggernaut, it's like try and get his helmet off. Otherwise, no, anything you do will fail. You can't stop the Juggernaut. That's why he's called the Juggernaut. It's the thing that steamrolls over everything else, right?
Yeah.
And I never got that until I saw like an example of it in game statistics. It's like, oh my goodness, what a dangerous adversary that was. Why didn't they show him a little bit more clearly as being like this unstoppable force? Oh, by the way, yes, he is. There is the long-standing Marvel thing. Like the Juggernaut is, the unstoppable force, and the Blob's powers you can't move him. He is the immovable object, and everyone says, "Oh, what happens if the Juggernaut runs into the Blob?" And there's like answers to like, "Oh, well, the universe explodes. The universe has to end before that can actually happen. Otherwise, no." The Blob does not have like this whole, high-end immunity to all movement. He can be moved. It's just really, really difficult when he doesn't want to. So yeah, the Juggernaut has moved the Blob. There. End of that conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever see, there's a Vsauce video. Vsauce, it's just like how it sounds. Vsauce, S-A-U-C-E.
Yeah.
I think it's called What Happens When an Unstoppable Force Meets an Immovable Object.
I do not believe I've seen that.
I guess I'll put a link in the show notes. And I guess spoiler alert, if you're assuming like there's infinities involved, they're infinitely immovable or unstoppable. They basically pass through each other because the thing that stops, stuff from colliding is the electrons in the shells.
The strong and awake nuclear forces
Yeah.
that keep everything from disintegrating and decaying and all that stuff.
Well, I mean, physically, like there's plenty of space between like.
Well, relatively plenty of space. I mean, we're talking down, like angstrom lengths and like tiny, like quantum lengths and whatnot.
And if it weren't for the electrons, this is the electromagnetic force. But if it weren't for that electromagnetic force, everything would just pass through everything else because the nucleuses would just, basically there's so low a chance of them colliding with each other that it would just,
So you're saying when you got this infinite momentum sort of thing, it just overcomes the electromagnetic force and they just go through?
Yeah.
Oh, because you realize how bad that's going to go for the Blob if like the Juggernaut runs into him then, right? Because if something goes through him, that's quite likely they are not going to draw them just phasing past each other. It's going to get really messy.
Well, I mean, and that's, I guess, where this scenario maybe isn't quite right, because maybe we're not quite dealing with infinities necessarily.
No, as it turns out, the Blob is not infinity. It's like, do you remember in, like, 3rd edition with Thor's hammer sort of thing? If you ever check out the stats for Mjolnir in, like, 3rd edition, it's a pretty sweet, magical artifact. But they have like a thing where like it weighs 80 tons to those who are not deemed worthy.
Okay.
So it is technically movable, but who can you find that can move 80 tons? I mean, do you know how many like large animals you're gonna have to hook up to a chain to get that to move, just to drag the dang thing?
Iron Man could do it.
Except in the Avengers thing that they're showing, no, he cannot.
Oh.
Yeah. It is like I urge you to check out the
Superman then.
Well, not only that, but Superman's actually considered worthy enough to lift the hammer,
Oh, okay.
so it's like regular weight for him. I've actually seen a bit where Superman has Thor's hammer and Cap's shield, and you want to talk about overpowered, there you go.
So, would you say Asgardians are comparable to Kryptonians as far as power level goes?
I actually do like to compare the two of them together in similar styles.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people say, oh, Asgardian, they're like gods. It's like, no, actually, they're just kind of, think of them more like Kryptonians, just, on another plane of existence. They are alternate reality Kryptonians.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like, I've seen a few crossover stuff, and I really would have liked to have seen Thor compare, Superman to like the Acer Vassar type thing. I was like, what? What third branch of the gods are you? Kryptonian. How? That said, I did get a chance to see something even cooler in that they combined the two of them together to create Thor-El, the Kryptonian thunder god.
Oh, that's cool too.
That was pretty sweet. Well, I was back when Superman was like the Electro Soups, back in like 1999. So it was like they combined, like the God of Thunder with electronic Superman. So, that was pretty fun. It didn't last too long, so you don't have to think too hard about it, but it was entertaining. So, I enjoyed it. Thumbs up. But yeah, that's been a lot of what I've been doing this week is steamrolling over opponents and building things and just deciding like what carpet works good with a dark brown wood.
I like that. That's the game you play, the interior decoration game.
Sad to say, that is where I do tend to focus in Minecraft a lot of the time.
Interior decoration simulator.
Heck, Yahtzee Croshaw basically gave the game a good review on that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. It takes a special kind of game where you start out wandering around the countryside, and then 9 hours later you're wondering, which sort of carpet works best with your flaming, magma falls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah. No, I think that's good, and I guess we have other games that are interior, like The Sims, for example. Is very.
Oh yes, I had a lot of fun with The Sims back in the day that way.
I'm a little worried. The Sims, I don't know if that's going to stick around. If they're still gonna. I don't think they're going to make The Sims anymore. It
was from Maxis, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Maxis recently died, which is, I guess, our news story for this week. EA took it out back and shot it. Along with BioWare, all sorts of other stuff that they buy just to kill. Because EA hates you, and that's why they're doing that to your favorite companies. Unless they start sponsoring us, in which case, I guess I'll change my opinion.
They're just over the water from us, but...
It's up to you, EA. You want me to change my opinion, you actually have to pay me for it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, the DRM for sport made me much less of a fan than I was before.
Okay. Well, I've been putting up with all the all that stuff and the software that they require me to have to play their games because I wanted to play them. I was like, okay. But
well, if you're ever okay with putting up with the DRM, I'll loan you my copy of Spore to play with. It's not bad, but you may have to get some, routing tools to get out all the little bugs they add into there.
Maybe, yeah. And anyways, I don't know how much we have to say on more to say.
Maybe the less the better.
Yeah.
Libel laws and whatnot.
They're a bunch of jerks. There, I said it.
They killed one of my favorite old-time companies. That said, I bet you the intellectual property rights for something like The Sims will pass over to something. They won't let it die. It's making them a lot of money.
I guess
or has made them a lot of money in the past, and so it's likely to be kept on a shelf.
Yeah,
dust it off when they think they'll make more money.
The other thing is maybe at this point maybe somebody could do a clone or another, because it's not like that's a difficult.
I do know that The Sims got a lot of flack for their most recent outing because they were asking for more money than the previous edition with the expansions, but giving less content.
Yeah, it's true.
So, yeah.
And I think at this point, I think other developers probably could come up with a reasonable. I wouldn't be
something in the similar genre, but maybe improved on this aspect or maybe more on that aspect as they so see fit.
That.
More ability to kill people to create ghosts.
When I play like a game like The Sims or Minecraft for that matter, or a game like that, I always imagine the game becoming like as big as it possibly, like what's the big potential for this game? Could you like have a huge that you could play all kinds of like
Sims MMO
other things in? I think Second Life was the one that literally attempted that.
Yes.
Second Life was like, this is a platform that you can do almost anything else in. And
here's even some programming language. You want this to happen, here's the coding to make this thing work. Build it yourself, sell it. That said, they have had some problems with they'll have like an item that creates that item.
Yeah.
And so every once in a while when they think things are patched but they're not fully, all of a sudden bam, like von Neumann machines completely populate the entire reality of the Second Life thing, and it all closes down until they can scrub it clean and fix the bug, which I think is hilarious. It's beautiful in that sense.
But yeah, realistically, developing games, you should probably just sort of focus on like what actual like activity are you going to, like, what small thing, like, what is your game going to be about, and just make it that.
Well, that's the thing, though, look at Dwarf Fortress. You start off with the core. Build a fortress and try and survive as long as possible before your inevitable demise. And then he's expanding out other things going on there. And, it used to be, dwarves need to party every once in a while, so they'll have a party. Now, no generic parties for them. Sometimes, depending on their preferences and all that, they'll go to a temple and pray, and that's how they'll spend their spare time. Mm-hmm. Other times, they will go, and they'll go to a tavern. Like he's made for taverns, and they'll go and they'll get drunk there, and they'll play music there. So finally, instruments are useful, or at least they will be out in the next patch. Sort of thing.
Sure.
And so he's adding more, and so you keep that core central part there. You want like a fortress simulator that you can make all your own stuff in, and there's a coding language that's pretty easy to, if you want to add something that hasn't been done, it's there. And he's constantly adding more and more stuff. Like the world moves now. Like before it was like you generate the world, you put down your fort, and no, there you go. The world is just stopped. Nothing progresses. Nobody takes anything over. The world is static. No, and the latest stuff it's still moving. Like you can do stuff that changes the course of the world. He's still going to make it so that you can actually send armies out to like raid and pillage and come back with stuff.
Oh yeah, cool.
Not yet, but boy, will that be just a magical day in the forums. It'll be beautiful, 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 beautiful. But so maybe it's like that. You have to keep that core. That's like your structural support part, and then everything else is considering like a building, everything else that goes around it that makes it look pretty, the style.
Sure, yeah.
The flair, the uniqueness, the little quirks that make things so much fun and wonderful.
Yeah. All right.
So just a nice way of thinking about it, I suppose. That way you can have everything, but as long as you keep your core principles the same, and maybe just upgrade those and refine them so that you get better. So what used to be a core supporting pillar of what you could equivocate out to brick, kind of crude, but still very functional, into something like a steel girder beam, something very refined, something very precise, very good, tested and lasts. And we're think about it that way, I suppose. So.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. That's been me this week.
That's your week. Okay. Yeah. Now. Do you want to talk about?
Oh, I did see a movie this week, but I'll talk about that. Yeah. I'll talk about that some other time, sort of thing. Whenever,
if it comes up, or
it had Nazis, so I'm afraid if I talk about this movie, we'll have to talk a lot about Nazis, and that could potentially occupy the rest of the hour we have left.
Yeah, and like many podcasts, we spend plenty of time on Nazis and World War II.
This one actually was relevant. It was about it was a sequel to the Invisible Man series.
Okay.
During World War II, like the son of the Invisible Man, the guy who came up with the serum, decides to, I will be the Invisible Man to spy on the Nazis so we can get proper information. Yeah. It's pretty decent, sort of thing. But I won't go too into that sort of thing. But yeah, because it contains Nazis, we could potentially talk the rest of the hour without getting into anything. So yeah,
okay.
Long story short, I liked it, but it was kind of weird.
And it was what was it called?
Invisible Agent.
Invisible Agent. Okay.
As a nice note, the guy who takes the Invisibility Serum doesn't wind up going insane. So hey, yay!
Oh.
It turns out it was like a personality defect in people who take it to go. He only takes it because he didn't want to give the serum off to anybody because of the dangers of using it. But then Pearl Harbor gets bombed, and he realizes the danger of not using it.
Mm-hmm.
But he still won't let anyone else, like a trained, like spy, use it, sort of thing. He says only he should bear the brunt of such a horrible, curse of being invisible.
Sure.
And so he's got that internal fortitude to not go insane with, he does play pranks, of course, on the Nazis. Yeah, come on, you're invisible, it's a Nazi, you're going to play a prank or two, right? Come on.
Like a prank, like, oh, now you're dead with a knife in your back.
No,
Prank.
no, it wasn't that bad. It's like
Okay.
the Nazis trying to woo a lady, and so he's doing stuff like stealing the guy's chicken, like a chicken wing, and then putting it in his pocket. So he's like, oh, I didn't even realize I had that there. Like smacking his hand, so he, hits his face with the food, or the guy, gets up and then tip the table over on him, make him look like a buffoon, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Good classical humor without any real bad things. Oh, he does make him sit on a fork, though. That's about as painful as it gets. His pride was very seriously wounded.
Sitting on a fork, I can imagine two different scenarios, very different, in sitting on a fork. One is not so bad.
Well, that's the thing is, just the guy sits down. Oh, there's a fork there now from all the mishaps or thing. His pride was deeply wounded, though. That was as bad as the wounding gets. Until the Nazis start shooting each other and all that sort of thing. Yeah. It had its good moments. A little weird, though, but we'll talk about that some other time.
Sure. Okay.
Yes, I think we had a topic we wanted to talk last week, but we never did get around to it. We got tangented off to a completely other thing.
I wanted to talk about the merits of stupidity, or when it's a good thing to actually be sort of dumb or, I don't know, ignorant or whatever.
Well, because it's interesting, back in 3rd edition, with a shadow-based illusion spells, mimicking spells of other schools, you could have, like, a magically illusionary light. If you go back to 3.0 and like the 1st edition stuff,
D&D,
the light spell was initially like an illusion glamour sort of thing, but because it was an illusion, you could disbelieve it and succeed. Whereby you set up a circumstance whereby you have a room that's well lit, but the light is an illusion spell. Therefore, anybody disbelieving the illusion is plunged into blind darkness. Whereas the stupid people who don't realize it or would fail such saving throws would be able to see clearly. And you could do the same sort of thing with a bridge. I will use my illusion, my shadow magic to create an illusory bridge. Yeah. But you're really smart there, this other wizard guy, and so you know that's an illusion. You plummet to your death, but there goes the half-orc barbarian just walking across it, not knowing any better.
Now, I have read, I think it was in a game design manual, possibly in the Dungeon Master's Guide or somewhere. I've read that there is a game design principle, and I think I agree with it, that you don't want to punish players for being too smart, at least not in that way. You don't want to say
there is the natural punishment of being so smart you can see the ethical consequences of a situation, and thus you cannot take the most beneficial to you. Whereas if you're playing, I'll say we'll go lizard folk, because they work as like a neutral race that's it's like very pragmatic.
Okay. Yeah.
Whereas they would not see any ethical quandaries about eating the flesh of a humanoid if they're hungry. The elven archwizard realizes no, such a thing is horribly considered evil and tainted by the gods, according to my knowledge religion check. As well, there's a chance of becoming a ghoul, according to my knowledge like the planes check, according to the stuff here. And yes, so I know enough. I have to starve to death because I can't eat this flesh. Oops. In which case, that's the downside to being too smart, is enough that you box yourself in sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's not exactly a rule standpoint thing. You can I guess, no one will look if I just, eat a hand. I mean, it's pretty much all bone anyways, right? It's not like I'm eating like a thigh or something.
Yeah, okay, so that kind of ignorance, I guess, can come in handy. And there's also, I don't want to maybe we can confuse it, because the word stupidity is sometimes used for someone who acts against their own interests, like for moral reasons or whatever. They're saying, you were dumb to let that prisoner go because they're just going to go kill some other people.
We'll say there's a religion that doesn't allow somebody to eat eggs. But eggs are delicious and nutritious. So you could call somebody pretty stupid for not eating eggs.
Yeah, but And I
we'll
mean,
use that as a nice example that I don't think will offend anybody.
Right, yeah. And so, I mean, that's a normal accepted definition of stupid, like, that we use every day.
As opposed to stupidity referring to a low intelligence score.
Yeah, there's that version of stupidity, which is just, oh, and being dumb. So there's that. There's stupidity of, like, being... sometimes when you're stupid, people like you more. Like, people don't like a smart ass. People like someone who's a little bit... They don't like...
Really? People like me when I'm being a smart ass and making nice jokes. Not at anybody, but, I do a nice joke and everyone's, oh, haha, that was kind of witty.
Yeah, well, and I
guess maybe where you're aiming your intelligence, like I aim it towards smiles. Other people use it as like a weapon. They aim it towards somebody's feelings.
Yeah, I mean, if you do like sarcasm and stuff, but also like if you're in most of our lives, like every day, we're like dealing with relative equals, like we're dealing with our peers and stuff.
Well, so that's the thing, though. I mean,
we live in a very democratic society.
But here's the thing: at anybody's place of business, you are fairly knowledgeable about what you're doing. You should be fairly knowledgeable about what you're doing. If you're not knowledgeable, you are you're kind of a danger.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever you do, you're knowledgeable, and so especially if you're working with a place where customers will come in, and the customers are not as knowledgeable as you.
Yeah,
in that particular, subject matter.
Yeah. So you don't want to get all snarky to them and be like, what, you don't know what a USB is?
So in which case, sort of thing, even though they might be intellectually on par with you, the subject matter that's relevant at hand really is a tipped scale. They are pretty darn stupid, because ignorant, I suppose. They just don't know.
Yeah. Although,
there should be a little dividing note between that, too.
Another problem with our modern society, or a difference, I guess, in our modern society is that we have 95% literacy or something like that. So generally,
if you include the functional literates in there, I think it gets in.
Something like that. We have way high literacy. So anyone who walks into your store, you can assume that, you probably have a high school education. You may even
unless you're too young to finish high school. But you're I mean, you can if you're going into a McDonald's, you should be I assume you can read everything on these boards here, so you know what's going on with the meal deals or what a number 5 meal is. Yeah. You can check that up. You don't have to ask, what's a number 5? And well, let's see here if you're on the big board behind me.
But in the D&D world, and also, I guess, where I'm going in my brain is I'm going back to, junior high school or even younger, when sort of the kids that you interact with, sometimes that whole, you could get beat up for knowing something, right? You could get,
I never got beat up for knowing things.
Depending on the school you went to.
I guess I went to a pretty easy school then.
But, if you're, too smart for you, if you're telling the bully, maybe you've, I don't know, that should happen in, TV shows and stuff.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it happen in TV shows, yeah.
The kid will say, I'm smarter than you. Actually, well, is Urkel a good example? Steve Urkel? Is he... Cause
on the one hand, he was considered very smart. He could clone a full-grown version of himself. That's pretty darn smart. That beats modern science today. And that was back in the 90s when he did it. On the other hand, that series went from a modern slice of life sort of thing and deep into the comedic sci-fi thing. And, so it's where do you count that as?
Yeah, and I guess there's the question of was he annoying because he was smart, or was he just also annoying? And was it also partly that smart people would get annoyed at Urkel because they're smart people don't act like that? A similar problem with the Big Bang Theory.
Well, that's the thing. I'm okay with the Big Bang Theory when it's about people. Mm-hmm. When they're just, a bunch of guys, doing something, I dig it. When they're a bunch of nerds doing something, I don't like it because it's... I think the term nerd face is being used for them. And I can see that. Yeah, it's more there. It's no, that's not how nerds do things. That's not how any nerd I've ever seen, does that, particular brand of nerdity. Mm-hmm. That's hyped up. That's nerd face. With Urkel, you really can't do that. Urkel was so far above, and beyond. It's he was almost a farce of the deconstruction of the nerd.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. I didn't find him as annoying as some of the family members, there made him out to be.
That's true too. Yeah, that's the whole. Yeah, they react to him a little bit.
I remember one scene where Urkel and Carl, the father, they're tossing like a bunch of stuff up in the garage, putting stuff up above where the car goes, and the ladder collapses and falls because of hilarious misfortunes and hijinks, and Carl's there just holding on to the thing to make sure he doesn't fall until Urkel gets the ladder up there and he climbs down, and they realize they've forgotten a beach ball. And it's like, oh, well, what do we do with that? And, it's like, I don't know, it's pretty full up there. Do you think it'll fit? And Urkel's like, come on, Carl. You were just hanging from that rafter. You are a big police officer. This beach ball, it weighs not even a pound. And, despite, Carl giving the look like, hey, don't you be making cracks about my weight. He's like, okay, I guess. And he moves it up. And sure enough, the whole thing comes collapsing down. And he blames Urkel for this. Despite the fact that, I guess, well, what do you think the father was weighing about? Supposed to be about 300 pounds, maybe? 250,
yeah, he's a big guy.
Yeah. Despite the fact that he was hanging off there and was probably the reason that it, got, such to a state that, it was about ready to collapse no matter what happened, Urkel got blamed for it, when any reasonable figure would not have blamed him for saying it's okay to put an inflated beach ball on top of that pile. Yeah. So they did unfairly react to him, although maybe it's something different, like it's supposed to be like his nasal voice. It wouldn't carry the same way over a television, so like if you had to deal with him in person, God, that nasal thing just gets right into my head. Just stop talking.
Well, I still think there's something about, like, I guess adults or people in power or people who are supposed to be, higher up in the hierarchy, really getting annoyed or grated just by somebody, like, lower down knowing better than them. I think they're a little bit threatened by it.
Although I do believe you could come up with a fairly decent body of evidence that Steve Urkel did not know better. That's why he got into so many hilarious hijinks.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Sometimes in very special episodes.
Yeah.
When things weren't always funny.
Yeah, so maybe they gave him more, like, at times they gave him more credit than he really should have had. But at times at other times he was right. He was, like, smart and he could figure things out. But yeah.
Like the concept of a beach ball being put up, above in the storage space versus, Carl hanging off of, the rafter there. That's fairly legitimate. I mean, no one can fault that logic.
I'd say.
And yet he still got faulted for it. So in which case, maybe it's just that he's smart and something went against the way, and despite the fact he said it would not happen, they blame him. Like, you should have been smarter than smart. You should have known this would have happened. Apparently being smart enough allows you to predict the future, some people assume. Although that said, I will say, I am smart enough to know that if you go up to someone who's antagonistic to you and you say, I'm smarter than you, so you should listen as I say, you are not smart enough to see what outcome is going to happen. And the answer, at least in movies and TV series, usually involves the word wedgie with some sort of atomic prefix. So you ain't that smart if you don't know how to not make enemies. As I like to say at work, I don't like to deal with angry customers, so I won't make angry customers. I just won't do things that would lend it towards a circumstance whereby I have to deal with an angry customer.
Yeah, that's good. And can one more aspect of stupidity I want to bring up is Socrates. Or I think it was Socrates. Socrates said, I am the wisest man on earth because I'm the only one who knows that I know nothing, or something like that. That's probably the wrong quote, but something like that.
And yet he still wasn't humble enough. He didn't change his name to Mediocrities. In which case, I guess he would have... Oh, no, I guess you'd have to know English for that word. Okay, I can understand it. English hadn't been invented yet. Okay. But that is a good point. The smart man knows his... well, that's the thing is in intelligence circles, like spy stuff, you've got your known knowns, what you know, you know. Your unknown knowns, what you don't know, you know. Your known unknowns, what you know you don't know. And your unknown unknowns, what you don't know you don't know.
Yeah.
And so a smart person knows where those divisions are. The smarter you are, the more clear these divisions are, the less chance of getting bad intelligence and going to war in a nation that doesn't have the weapons of mass destruction you thought very heavily that they did. Not pointing any fingers anywhere. America. So in which case, yes, a smart person has those interesting divisions, or so they think, because you can hit that part where you think you're smart enough you know, but you don't actually know.
Yeah.
Whereas a person who's dumber doesn't know these things, and so you can say, like, well, the old saying, well, let's see if I can't do this, where you approach a subject like, I don't know if I can do this, but I'm going to give it a try. So in which case, a smart person will say, I do not believe I can do this, so I'm not even going to make the attempt. In which case, you know, like, even if the dumber person has a 50-50 chance of doing it, that's still 50% higher than the guy who doesn't do it at all.
Yeah, I wanted that was another advantage of stupidity, is that it gives you a little, it gives you a little bit of hubris, but it's also a little bit of, you know, that daring do, that heroic, like, you know, I'm going for it, I'm going to try it, even if, you know, I don't know my chances of success.
Well, in games of D&D, I mean, there's always a 5% chance of success.
Yeah.
There's always a 5% chance of failure, too, but, you know, there's always that 5%, and so, like, you can have a person working on, like, okay, we got this chance here and this chance here, and someone else is like, don't ever tell me the odds, I'm rolling dice, I'm going to see if I can do this.
That's true. And I guess the other advantage, or if you want to call it advantage of stupidity, I don't know, like, as a species, if we, like...
It calls off the really stupid?
Well, I wouldn't even say that. I would say it allows us to take risks, and then, you know, inevitably some, like, smarter or stupider people, like, if 20 guys take a risk, or 20 guys and girls all take the same risk, and there is just a flat 5% chance that the risk is, you know, deadly. So one person out of those 20 people is not going to make it, but the other 20 will. If you're
the other 19.
Oh, yeah, the other, sorry.
I don't know if these two people are doing like reproduction to make an extra 20th person to replace the one that just died.
Maybe.
It doesn't usually happen that quickly. I don't know what people you're using.
As an individual, like, I don't want to make a choice at a 5% chance. That's huge. A 5% chance of me dying. I would not take that risk. But as a species,
if I had a 5% chance of dying every time I hopped into the car, I would probably be doing a lot more walking.
Although I suppose, like, if our tribe is 20 people and it's like, oh, we have these 5% risks every day, then yeah, your tribe's going to get whittled down pretty fast.
3 weeks later, you're running short of people willing to try this sort of stuff.
Yeah. So I don't know. There has to be some level of risk taking, and I think we've reached, like, we have that because we have sort of daredevils and people who jump out of balloons.
We got people doing entrepreneurial stuff. We got people opening businesses, and it's not always, those last couple of years, not always been the best time to open a business, try something new. But we always have those people trying.
Yeah, and not all of them. I mean, yes, some of them are very smart, and it takes some.
Sometimes it takes more than smarts too.
But they're not always smart.
They're not always successful.
Sometimes they're just dumb and lucky.
And how's that saying go? I'd rather be lucky than smart, which I never agreed with.
Well, if you can, like, it's very difficult to change your luck. That's the thing. At least if you're focusing on smarts,
I've seen people gambling. I know that luck does not last. I would not want to be lucky. Smart sticks around until you do something that like damages your brain. You will still continue being smart.
Yeah.
Luck. I mean, you cannot, just keep your luck going. You're like, oh, I'm gonna go home and study my luck. You can go home and keep reading up and make sure you're the expert in your field. So I do not agree with that saying at all. And whoever goes, I said I'd rather be lucky than smart. I do not want to be getting in a car with him.
Well, I mean, if this is the whole one time versus a lifetime. If you're talking about one instance or one incident, then sure, you get through it, and you're like, wow, I'm glad I was lucky. My smarts apparently didn't have much to do with the outcome, so I'm glad it happened that way.
But here's the thing: even smart people can fall victim to certain ideological traps, wherein it's like, oh, it wasn't just luck. It was me. It was my skill, my grace, and all that.
What is that called? The self-attribution or something like that.
False self-attributions.
Yeah.
Where it's I think there was a Dilbert comic strip recently where it was Aesop the intern says I put a daytime bid and my stock came out just about 6%. That makes me a master trader. I'm going to max out all my cards and invest all my money in, and soon I will be a millionaire. And then Dilbert points out that the market actually went up 7%. And, so the 6, I guess, really was not as good as average. And then Aesop responds by going, it was just luck. It can't happen forever. He goes broken. I guess he's going to wind up being an intern forever, poor guy.
Yeah.
And so in which case, just because you're smart doesn't ever mean you're smart enough. Whereas a dumb person might know that I'm not smart enough to get into the whole, day trading thing. I should probably just get away with that. In which case, you put your money in, you can say we'll say you're got a good account, you get 2% interest rate. Yeah, right, you can get 2% interest rate for any account at the bank. But yeah, we'll say that just as a nice, easy thing. In which case, your 2% is going to wind up doing better in the long run than day trading will likely get you, unless you are really in the know and smart enough. So there is a certain setup in the system whereby the stupid person can come out ahead just by not taking those risks. They know they're not smart enough to maybe get those risks right.
Yeah.
That's it. I think stat-wise, in like a game, thing, there is some extra freedom in being dumb. In that you can make excuses for why did you do that? Oh God, why did you start attacking the King's Guard?
Oh yeah.
I thought they were threatening me. And then the story progresses onward as opposed to like another half hour of talking to the King's retainer just to get an audience with the King themselves. Oh.
Yeah.
So there is an extra level of freedom and progression. Like, sorry to have beaten up your royal guard, as well as this guy here, who apparently is your retainer, but we need to talk to you about a force of orcs coming to demolish everyone. What we did is just a drop in the ocean compared to what these orcs are going to do, so we need to borrow some of your mounted knights. We think we would stop them off at the pass. Congratulations, you've now progressed the plot a lot faster than a half hour of negotiating and bribing an official.
That's good.
Yeah, so in game-wise terms, having that low stat to allow you to do something stupid, or low wisdom score to do something foolish, at least it gets things moving.
Yeah.
Take that as you will. I've seen a lot of people do a lot of dumb things, and it didn't help them out. So I guess that's maybe the luck chance, whether or not it goes in your favor.
Yeah. There's also charisma. I was just thinking, like, sometimes you might, if you're going to, a court, or, a king's court or something,
yes,
and you are socializing with, maybe it's a party or something, like, maybe you're not necessarily talking to the king, and then you have, like, a dumb member in your party who, like, hangs out with somebody else dumb at the court, and they sort of hit it off because they're both, I don't know.
He's off talking with the chef sort of thing, and the chef's actually gotten in because the chef, the king's always talking to the chef. You want to make sure you're friends with the chef so they don't poison you, right?
Yeah.
And so the king's, so that way, because I was talking not to the courtiers in the royal court, but to the guy the king actually talks to, I can, spread the word in there.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if stupidity actually has anything to do with that or something like that. But I was thinking, like, sometimes...
Well, if the cook was smarter, he would have been an alchemist.
Yeah,
Boom.
I guess so. Well, so depending on the setting, because sometimes it's like, got a very rigid, class system, or that, no, you're born a cook, you'll stay a cook, and you'll always be a cook.
Listen, we've already branded you with the cook tattoos. Do you know how much it's going to cost to get the tattoo removal done? This isn't the real world where some guy has invented a cream you can apparently put on that gets rid of it, which is a thing that the long-term trials have not gone through, but initial indicators do show that there is a much less painful way than getting lasers piercing your flesh to get rid of these tattoos. We're not living in that kind of future, buddy, so you're going to have to keep that tattoo or find some sort of way to turn yourself into like some sort of cook knight so we can just put a second tattoo on you.
Yeah.
Actually, could you use a frying pan as like a shield or a weapon? This cook knight.
Frying pan? Well, I guess it could be both.
So in that case, he can like dual wield shields, and then they're two shields when I need them to be, but they're also two weapons when I want them to be.
Yeah, is there like a wide, what's the gladius is a short wide sword, or is it not quite that?
Where you can wind up using it as...
Is there like a big wide blocking sword? I don't know if that exists.
I believe most swords...
they're intended to be used for blocking also, yeah.
Mind you, I wouldn't want to block a claymore with a rapier. But, you know, against their own class of weapons, I think all of them are at least designed to take a little brunt of damage. And especially with the finer ones, you've got the whole pommel's handle stuff, so that you can catch it in the guard that way. And then, oof! You know, just like a nice little punch to the breadbasket, so to speak. And try fighting me winded when you can't even breathe in. Yeah. So yeah, in that case, I think ultimately in gaming terms, it's up to the DM to educate exactly how it works. Because like any circumstance you can throw at me for a smart person in the party, I can come up with a counter where a dumb person can manage to make something else work about as equal. Which, let's face it, in a game setting is how it should be. No matter how smart you are, no matter how dumb you are, as long as you got an idea, it should stand a chance at working, because you're helping to move the plot forward.
Yeah. And well, there's another thing. Like I don't know if I should start going down this rabbit hole, but questioning the whole idea of whether intelligence even actually measures anything, because generally, like human beings, yeah, sure, we can score different on an IQ test. And I guess we have different levels of spatial reasoning, like can I fit through this doorway or things like that.
And yet you see all those things about kids that try to stick their head through the bars, on the stairs, and then they didn't realize that ears only really work one way for moving through the stuff, and then it really hurts to go back the other way.
But I think even a smart kid can do that. I guess.
I've never failed it myself, but I guess that's one of those unknowns in that case. You don't realize that, the ear is part of your body, and that it's kind of flapped, so that going back is hurting. Yeah,
and but I do wonder if a large part of intelligence isn't just simply our own self-perception of like, well, I don't think I'm that intelligent, so I'm not going to try figure out this trap or whatever. I mean, are people really like that different? That like, are some people really that much quicker than other people?
Some, yes. I mean, there have been times like I have come up with like the perfect response to a situation without needing to think about it, and yet there have been like other times where it's like I remember like not too long ago I was in the shower, I'm washing my hair, and then like a situation occurred, like a memory from back in the day, and I'm like, oh, that was the perfect line I could have used, and then I do some math as I'm still that was like 20 years ago. So it took me 20 years before the perfect comeback line manifested.
Well, do you feel like that, like if you represented that in D&D terms, is that just a roll of the die, like you just rolled a 1 on that one?
No, in that case, I think it would actually work out better as intelligence as a reflection of level. 20 years ago, I was just a young, cheese-eating teenager who I didn't even know better. You call me first level at best. Now, I've got levels of, witty, repartee going out here or there. Yeah. And so, I am much better at coming up with...
Level 2 podcaster?
Well, let's just say, I'm much better now at coming up with a good line that'll get people laughing in a certain situation. For instance, this last week, my manager got, apparently chemical burns on his face. He's not 100% certain where.
And you hit him with a real zinger.
I said, well, the thing when he came on back sort of thing, I said, well, I told you to keep away from the hot sauce. Why'd you get it all over your face? And he's like, ba-dum-bump, yeah. And so he's able to get a nice little smile laugh out of that one.
Okay.
And then, it's like, okay, so I never did actually hear the proper story sort of thing. So what did happen to you and all that? And so I used the one-liner to crack a smile, make sure he's not, feeling too bad. Because, let's face it, I chemically burned part of my face. How did that happen? I must be so stupid. I mean, let's face it, it was like sometimes we got to mark the difference between stupid and just ignorant. Stupidity could be seen as, I accidentally, burned part of my hands off of, touching something that was hot. I knew it was hot, I just didn't think about it. Versus, I had never been told you should not be putting paper towel in the toilet and flushing it, because that'll clog the pipes. And boy, are they good at clogging pipes. You want to cause a clogged toilet, you get yourself some paper. You don't even need a lot of paper towel, just a couple of them. They will work, man. Yeah. In that case, that's just not knowing. So you've got the difference between the two. But yeah, I used the one-liner to open up. Okay, so to tell me what happened there, and so break the ice. And I can come up with a one-liner for a lot of situations. I wrote experience, like I have this stuff in my head, versus I think this would be a good line to use. I'm gonna practice it a few times in my head. Then the time comes, it's like, oh hey, I deliver a line here, a line there. Next thing I got people laughing at what I'm doing. I'm the scene, the higher ups in the business are looking at me and like, oh, this is a golden boy. Look at his customer service skills here. And so I just consider that to be effectively a higher level than what I used to be.
Okay. All right. So there is a
I've
difference.
maxed my skills out, sort of thing. It's not a stat score or anything like that. It's just a reflection of all that I have about me accumulating.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a little bit of what goes into intelligence, too, is that it's a part of it is just being willing to learn and adapt and add to your sort of knowledge and repertoire and just your patterns of getting around things and thinking. Also because you can improve your spatial IQ just by practicing,
Oh yeah, not that we're being
stuff.
Sponsored by them, but places like Luminosity, they specialize in that, where you will do like little brain-building exercises.
I think, yeah, I assume that kind of works.
Any of that stuff works well. I've had very nice moments where playing Sudoku where it's like, oh, just do this. It all fits together. And I learned a new technique, and all of a sudden it's like, what used to be like a 4-star difficulty one where I'd be working for like, I'd take it home with me after work, and I'd spend an extra hour making sure I finish it. It's like, oh, done.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So those games actually do help. Provided you're working at it. If you're just actively doing it as one thing passively, like did a number here, number there. Okay, I guess I'm done. And where how you see occasionally like a crossword puzzle where like every third or fourth line is filled in, but no one's actually making a concentrated effort.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and that's the difference. You got to be active to get your bonuses out.
Yeah. Okay, I have another scenario in which stupidity is advantageous, and that is if you're the president, or the
I was
CEO,
elected to lead, not to read.
Because there's no way you can become a specialist in all of the things that you need to know to run your company or
not
your country or whatever.
I'm still hoping for a breakthrough in education technology whereby one day we will be able to become masters in so many techniques and fields as opposed to it takes a lifetime to master this. It's like, well, no, you guys were doing it the stupid way. Here's the way you learn. 6 weeks later, you're now like one of the best in what would have been the best in the world beforehand. Now everyone can do it in 6 weeks. No problem at all.
Yeah, I guess so. There is that. But
that is my big hope for the future, which might be a pipe dream, but I'll admit out loud.
But maybe I'm wrong about this, but like this idea that if you're stupid, or like if you think you're stupid, then you will not necessarily rely on your own flawed judgment for each of these specialized areas, but you'll have, you'll hire a team, like as the president has a staff,
a
cabinet or whatever, the prime minister, or has his members of parliament, or
some people, CEOs will hire, like a think tank.
Maybe something like a think tank, or just advisors, or what do you call it?
I don't think you need to be dumb for that, because I think that's one of the greatest powers of humanity is that we can add 1 and 1 together to make 2.
Okay.
And whereby two people are doing better than one, and like when humanity comes together and we get enough people going together, we can do some amazing things. We can build dams enough that we can completely block out any river access. Like actually going to the ocean. We can change the course of mighty rivers.
So
they're real, man.
So you would say it probably is more advantageous for like the president or the prime minister to be very smart. Like it probably.
Well, let me respond with a Chinese proverb. Even if you know 10,000 things, you should still ask the man who knows only one.
Okay. Right.
In this case, 10,000 things being like a poetic way of saying I know everything.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And I think that's a great way of surmising it. It's like no matter how smart you are, there's still other ways of thinking, and so a dumb person can still think about something from a different perspective that you just hadn't considered.
Mm-hmm. And I was trying to get to this point a little bit earlier, but also if you think about politicians, you don't want to come off as too smart, because then you're like an egghead.
I think that's a horrible way of thinking.
Okay, no,
I do not want to vote for the person I would most likely have a beer with.
Okay.
And not just ignoring I don't really drink much for alcohol anyway, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, I want to vote for the person who I most want to efficiently do the job.
Yeah, so you want a very smart, you would go with...
I would heavily prefer some sort of meritocracy thing going on.
Okay.
I would like a politician to listen to people who are knowledgeable in the field upon which they are making decisions about.
All right.
Rather than telling them, this is our ideology, you have to follow it this way. And so they have to make the smart people conform to their views, which is just a horrible thing. Absolutely, just a travesty.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's a good point. I'm glad you made that point, because I think I totally agree with you. Yeah.
So in which case, the politician is not smart enough to realize they should listen to the smartest people in the field.
Yeah.
Like, if I want to learn about what's going on with the Large Hadron Collider, I would preferentially find blogs and the website for the LHC and what's going on. Following that, let's work with second tier. Hey, there's a Quirks and Quarks thing on there. Bob McDonald's a pretty smart guy, and he's able to congest the information down to fairly easy to understand, bytes, and fit it into a good format, so that I can listen to it in a reasonable amount of time. That's next. Third tier would be a generic news article, like, I'm going to go to a website and see what, like the news article on news.com is saying. I don't know if that's an actual website or anything, but...
Probably. Sounds like one.
It should be if it's not. Or maybe news.net. Sounds more technical then.
Yeah.
Other than that, I go down to an average person's, like blog as to the whole thing. And so there's different levels of what I would consider for it.
Okay.
And because I believe what everybody should be doing is weighing what is being said to them by the value of how much weight it has. An expert in their field, when they say, do this, weighs heavily. When an expert in a field says to do something in another field, I'm not going to give it so much weight, because they're not an expert in that field. They're an expert, but in, their field.
Yeah.
So I would not, listen to, like, a physicist, say, we should do this, for socioeconomic policies, because I'm a very smart physicist. No, that your views are fairly lightweight. I'll see what the actual socioeconomic professors say on these sorts of things. I think a lot of people could very much sort out misinformation through that technique.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that gives me hope, because there was a time I didn't even realize to think that way, to weigh what was being said to me by its value, and the nature of the person saying it. It was just like, I hear one source of information saying A, one source of information saying B. I'm confused. What to, A versus B. Where it's like, okay, you are a guy screaming on the corner saying it, versus you over here being, a professor, who's actually studying it and has, like, several papers out, which I can read, by the way, if I ask you. You can show me your papers. And I can read this stuff, and I can see the evidence, I can look at the data. So I will put your weight as, like, say, 90%, so I'll take your information times it by 0.9, just in case you're wrong. Sometimes they are wrong.
Yeah, okay.
Versus crazy person
good.
Screaming at the corner. There's a chance they're right, so I'll, times that by 0.01. 1% credence to that value.
Right.
And I think that's the greatest thing I learned out of university.
Sure.
Was just the concept of data has different relevance.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. And then the world changed that day, and the world has never been the same, and it's a lot clearer and a lot easier to understand things. When I can just dismiss it as, this thing here is an image on a Facebook thing that somebody has, liked and relinked. I'm not going to give that much credence. I'm not even going to consider that, man. I will go to Snopes. Maybe I'll find, a counter to that, and because they do research, I'll put them as heavier, and I'll put a link to Snopes saying, hey, you're completely wrong. And hopefully somebody will get more intelligent off of me helping them out this way, and not see it as being, like, antagonistic.
I like
on wood.
I like that, too, because that is it's a trick. Like, it's not, you don't get any smarter by applying this sort of
but you don't
rubric.
get boggled down with stupidity.
Yeah, but it definitely does improve the results that you get, and it feels smarter. It feels like,
I consider it like a shower. It washes the stupid away. It prevents it from accumulating. Stupid is like dirt and sweat and oils. You know, in which case, you know, you have the shower weighing stuff away. It's like, my process is like soap. It washes me clean. All that's left on me is the smart stuff said by people who know what they're talking about.
Well, yeah, that's a
Which
nice
I guess
world
is like
to
a
live
perfume stuff. You know, that's how I consider it when I'm weighing the stuff. It's like, don't say it bad. I'm disregarding what you're saying. No, it's just I'm washing it away. It doesn't have any weight.
Okay.
The perfume of intelligence surrounds me. It makes me sweet and wonderful and likable. I hope. Because, I mean, there's such a thing as having too much perfume on a person, in which case I'd be like a person who's spouting all sorts of facts and constantly correcting everybody on every little minutia. In which case, we can consider that to not being like a low intelligence score, but definitely a lowered charisma score on that. Which is an interesting concept entirely, of like having one attribute score actively interfere with another. You know, if you were a little dumber, I'd like you more. If your intelligence score was lower, you know, you'd have a higher charisma.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, think about it that way.
It's a bit of a false dichotomy there, yeah.
Well, that's the thing, though, is just like not everybody likes a person who's always correcting them, even if they're right, especially if they're right, because it starts getting in you like dirt in a wound. It's like, you're just annoying me. Yeah. In which case, they would benefit by learning when to say, the long story and the minutiae of the whole thing is actually a little different, but in the broad terms, so you get the gist of it. In which case, it's like, okay, so maybe there's more I should learn about this, but the guy's telling me I got the initial stroke right, and if I said this color was orange, it's not, purple. It might be some sort of subshade of orange, but, whatever. I got the basic bits right. So I'll go learn more about the color orange later on tonight.
So can we say, like, overall, like, I guess it's a no-brainer to say, generally,
only a stupid person would prefer to be stupid.
Yeah, intelligence is always preferable, like, right?
John Wayne once said, life's tough, but it's tougher when you're stupid.
Yeah.
By the way, I didn't do any pre-research on this. These are just quotes I know. So, woo!
Good job.
Yeah. Sometimes it pays to actually sit down and try and memorize a quote or two. They make you look smart.
But yeah, I guess we've thought of a few tiny little corner cases where it might give you a little edge to not know something or be a little dumb, but not those. Consider
it like Jackie Chan's ability to run up a wall. Most people, when they're up against the wall, they run into it. Sometimes you learn how to bounce back and come out even higher off the situation. Done just right, stupidity allows you to bounce against a wall and come back kicking.
All right.
Not all the time, and sometimes you got to get things just right. I've seen Jackie Chan fail that climb up a wall by jumping back and forth a few times. He has had to have pretty much every part of his body in a cast at one point, so yeah.
Well, I wonder if that's more just calculated risk, which is not just maybe another kind of intelligence.
Potentially break your leg, but do your own stunts to get a higher pay grade, or have someone else do your stunts and get a lower pay grade,
or even just for the art reasons, because maybe it's about money too, but maybe it's also just this art.
Well, in that case,
that we make will be better.
The higher pay grade is a symbol of how much he's respected.
Yeah.
If they didn't respect him, they wouldn't give him so much money. They wouldn't just be offering him like, $20 million for a movie. I don't know if that's actually what he's ever been paid.
I don't know. Yeah, who knows.
That's it. I can see them saying, we would pay you $20 million, but because you're doing your own stunts, you would not believe how much we have to pay for insurance. So we can only offer you $10. But all the insurance is paid up. We got that covered for you. It's a benefit now.
Yeah, maybe.
He does hurt himself an awful lot. Like, most of the blooper reels I've seen in his movies are him getting hurt doing things. And that's almost like a sad blooper reel, because you should be like, oh, haha, something funny happened. That's what blooper, right? Sounds like a funny word. Where it's like, oh God, that knee wasn't supposed to go in that way. Oh my goodness, Jackie, are you okay? Will you ever move again?
Oh, I have another angle, one more angle that I'm not sure if we covered. Ignorance is bliss. Is it like, are you happier if you're dumb? I suspect the answer is no, but
the answer,
I want to hear
I believe, is actually yes.
Okay.
Because when you're smart, you see the bigger picture. And when you can see the bigger picture, you can see how many people don't see the bigger picture.
Okay.
When you're not smart enough to see the bigger, broader perspective, it's like, okay, it's a simple problem. Answer this, answer that. I take the problems as they come. A bigger, mind sees further in the horizon, so to speak. In which case, like they can see no one else is making these big decisions that will steer things correctly. And so, while these little decisions they make might seem right, it ultimately leads down a bad course. So they have I'm the only one who can do this, and so they get the burden on their shoulders. I am the only one who's seeing how this is going. I got to try and steer things the right way to make sure we don't all, walk ourselves off a cliff like lemmings.
And there's a H.P. Lovecraft quote, which I think we've used before on the show, but the most merciful thing in the world is the inability of the human mind to correlate its content.
Yes, the beginning of the Call of Cthulhu story.
Which is to say, if you could, truly perceive and understand what's really going on, if you were that smart, the world would be that much more horrible to you because you'd see that everything is meaningless or we're doomed or whatever.
Well, for Lovecraft, it was either that humanity is an utterly meaningless, fraction of a speck of reality, or that the things that do matter are very much unlike what we are. So you can take it either as, being like, the burden of intelligence weighs down upon the smart people versus, oh my goodness, monstrosities will consume our souls.
Yeah, I like both of those.
It works well in both ways for his stories, too.
Yeah. And I guess, when you, our prediction, our view of our human future, if you've got all the sum of human knowledge to date.
It's all in my brain right now.
Well,
okay.
or whatever. You know that humanity is not going to last forever. That there's going to probably something is going to happen. We're going to go extinct or something like that.
Or we'll wind up, doing something like transhumanity, where what we qualify for as, once we're done, will no longer be what we previously defined humanity as.
Yeah, it could be something like that. But even if you project, hundreds of billions of years into the future.
Do the time machine where we go to the year 111,000 AD or whatever it was he went to.
Or even I'm thinking billions to the point where even the stars in our galaxy are burned up. Basically, you can't get the power of civilization of a technological civilization because none of the stars have enough energy left in them. So basically, at that point, humanity there's no energy left to continue, so humanity dies.
I think that's a challenge. And I think we're starting to overcome those aspects of the challenge.
I guess you can always hope. And that's the fact is we are ignorant about, the possibilities. We don't know.
There are some things we can theorize, though.
Sure.
For instance, let's say, the various, atomic furnaces that are the stars. Oh, well, out of, hydrogen and helium, nothing to burn. Have you ever seen the bleeding edge of an accretion disk of a black hole, Josh? I hope not. It's rather harsh life there.
No, I haven't.
But if you work yourself really down onto the quantum scale sort of thing, you got particles forming along with their antithesis and then annihilating each other all the time.
Yeah,
it's part of the bubbling chaos that is the underlying pinning of our reality as far as we know it.
Yeah, so you think you could extract power from a
The accretion disk, according to our theories, is that if a particle and the antiparticle create, on the edge of this accretion disk, the antiparticle gets whisked away.
Yeah, Hawking radiation.
And so what's left over is just, oh, hey, a basic particle of the universe. And so we get a net benefit. If you utilize the black hole as being, not part of the universe because you can't get to the stuff inside there, then we are getting a net benefit out of the universe. We're getting extra mass out of it. Mm-hmm. And so in which case, if we could, funnel, do some sort of, scoop, how you got, oxygen scoops in cars and all that sort of thing to get more oxygen into the engine, right? You get yourself, a particle scoop on that, and you're scooping up your particles, and hey, you roll these together, mix them up, hey, look at that hydrogen, basic particle, woo! In which case, we can have some interesting fun with that.
And that maybe, sure. Why not?
I consider it a challenge to the human race, and I never lose.
Well,
which quote was that?
Oh, I never lose. Who said I never lose?
I consider it a challenge before the whole human race, and I never lose. We are the champions, Queen.
Oh, okay.
That's a factoid, man. Consider this: is in a few billion years, the sun's going to go, nova, expand out, and eat the Earth effectively.
Yeah.
Unless we can figure out some way to change things, we have got, we'll say, 3 billion years to get enough technology, enough knowledge accumulated, whereby we can say, no, we're not going to have you die on us, son. We shall extract the higher end particles, and we shall fission them down to the more basic particles and funnel you back in again. We will be your life support system. You gave us life, and you nourished the earth. We shall make sure you live forevermore as the eternal star. How does that sound?
Well,
does that not put humanity in maybe the best possible galactic light? Something where we actually matter on the cosmic scale? Even if we can never figure out a way to go faster than the speed of light, at least we can have a really sweet, like a solar system.
I would probably move. I think it's probably more practical just to move all of civilization out, like take them, one person at a time, to just further planets and further planets as the sun.
Yeah, but then the sun's going to wind up going back again, and it contracts, and then it's going to be all horrible stuff there, and really. Wouldn't it just be easier to put the sun on a life support system, whereby let's take some information from the Star Trek universe where we can teleport, get a long range teleporter.
Okay.
The technology.
So now we have teleporters. Right?
Well, we've got 3 billion years to figure this out.
Okay.
And in the Star Trek stuff, they have had interstellar aliens can do it. They can't do it with their stuff, but they can have interstellar teleportation. In which case, you just teleport the higher, atomic number particles out of the sun, fission them down to basic particles, teleport them back in. There you go. One clean burning sun. We got rid of all the particulate debris that accumulates up. We do recommend you get your sun cleansed of these higher particles debris every, we'll say, 100 million years or so. It helps prolong long solar lifestyle, or I guess in this case, stellar lifestyle. Not always the sun.
Okay. Well, that sounds pretty far-fetched to me, but I guess that's sort of the future.
The future always sounds far-fetched.
We don't know what sort of technology we might have, but yeah. I
consider
still feel
any potential chance at the end of humanity to be just a challenge for us to overcome.
So here's the thing. I agree with you that it's worth wanting and worth sort of pursuing. At the same time, I also think that it's likely that we will simply somehow, I don't know how, I think the more likely outcome is that we're going to go extinct. And this might not happen for, another billion years, 2 billion years. So we have a good run ahead of us.
Hey, 2 billion years, I think even, the little bit of genetic change we got going on here, we're going to become something that isn't human. But we're not going to. Yeah. Humanity might become extinct, but we will go on.
Possibly, maybe humanity's descendants might.
Neo-sapiens.
My prediction is that something will happen, maybe we'll just destroy ourselves or something. But my prediction is that somehow it'll come to an end at some point.
My prediction is we are wily. We say, weasels weasel out of things, right? Well, they got nothing. No animals got anything on us.
I'm not ruling that out. I'm just saying I think there's a very small chance of us. And 1% or whatever. Who even knows? But yeah, I won't take that away from humans, but I will say the odds are against us. But has that stopped us before?
I say the odds are in our favor. Because we're smart enough to figure something out. We're canny enough.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately, final line, short term, it is better to be stupid. Because life's easier. You don't have to worry. Think, is this job really the best I can do? Maybe I should be trying for another thing. Maybe I should resume my educational processes and do all this. Whereas a dumb person's like, I got a good job. I can feed myself. I can have fun time on the weekend every once in a while. Let's rock on till retirement.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easier, to live the stupid life. But the bonuses, the perks of being smart, the things you can do that a dumb person just wouldn't be able to think of, I think it's worth it. Ultimately, you have better, more fun options and better, more crowning moments of awesome when you're smart. Because there's entire avenues a dumb person couldn't even think of.
Yeah, well, and that little point I was trying to make also is that smart isn't necessarily just what you're born with. It's part of it is an attitude and a way of looking at the world. And if you are able to sort of analyze things and teach yourself a little bit and learn, then yeah, you can be smart enough. I mean, you might not never be the quickest person in the drawer, quickest knife in the drawer,
sharpest knife in the drawer, or maybe the quickest dagger through the air.
Through the air, yeah. But you can still live a relatively intellectual life, even not having the full access to certain parts of being smart. That's my thoughts on that.
Well, I do heavily believe that unless there's like actual biochemical processes inhibiting it, intelligence is mostly a factor of your attitude. Mm-hmm. If you want to learn more and do this, you will become smarter. And if you keep on going, you will become one of the smartest, if not the smartest, in that particular field. If you don't want to, it doesn't matter how many neurons you were born with and how much stuff is building up there, you won't become smarter because you can't build on nothing.
Yeah. Although, well, now that you mention that, like, I wonder if this whole conversation was a little bit moot, because there might be, I mean, when we're talking about really the borderline between just, being a stupid person and actually being developmentally, less developed.
Handicapped is the technical term. You
literally have that disadvantage, and I can't say there's much good about that. I mean,
never factored that into any of the equations that we were using today.
Yeah,
I always figured that as
we were just talking about just dumb people in general.
I was actually working with a theoretical human multiplied by X number of times, where they all start off with the basic effective potential and what they do with that. I mean, I was working on some sort of weird, fictional human poly person.
Yeah, and I suppose like people with disabilities, learning disabilities or such things, sometimes they can sort of specialize and they can actually learn a great deal about one subject or another, but they're unable to, some parts of their brain just don't seem to work that way or whatever. And I think it's not quite right to say, they have an advantage, but at the same time they still have other skills and they have other things that they can access.
So I guess, our caveat at the end of this is that we were not attempting to naysay anybody who has disabilities of that sort. This was just, the hypothetical average person as opposed to what they can do and whether or not it's better to try harder or be a try hard or a casual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So...
Although I will note, at some point you should know when to stop, because of diminishing returns. Let's see, I believe it's Michael J. Fox said, perfection is not only unattainable, it is unrealistic. Excellence is something everyone should strive for, but not perfection.
All right, yeah.
Sometimes it's okay just being really smart at what you want to be really smart at. You don't have to be the smartest at it. Unless you get a prize for it, like you're doing bar trivia, in which case, hey, free hot wings, woo! Because, free hot wings, man. Right. That's worth trying to study more for, right? Get yourself a Guinness Book of World Records and start, cracking the book there and read cover to cover.
There's no benefit, and I think D&D did the right thing with this. There's no benefit to being drunk in the rules, right? So if you voluntarily get stupider, some people have said, I see on internet forums and stuff, well, I should get a bonus if I'm drunk. I should, be able to do something better. Because when I get drunk, I'm able to, I don't know what they do better when they're drunk, but pretty much every ability is hampered by being drunk.
You only think you're getting better.
Yeah.
Although I would be willing to give a bonus on, morale saves. Because you don't know that you should probably cut your losses and not fight this guy in the alley behind the bar.
Okay, so you might have a little liquid courage there.
Yeah, in that case, that's about the only real benefit I could give. Maybe a +1 bonus if you're in a peeing contest. It means you need to use the bathroom more.
Well, couldn't you get the same thing just from drinking a lot of water or coffee or whatever?
Maybe coffee and all that. But if you're having a peeing contest, chances are you're drunk anyways. Everyone gets the same +1 bonus.
Sure. Okay. We've gone a little... Yeah, we're
not
out of
too
time.
far over. But I think we ended off on a classy note. Peeing contest.
Yes. If people want to get in contact with us, just send us your anecdotes, your stories, your suggestions for the show, your reactions to things that we've said. If we've said something that's I don't know, if we've got something wrong or offended anyone.
If you got a better way to get rid of, like the death of the sun than, like teleportation stuff, I'm okay with that. You can send me a note. I want to hear about that.
Yeah, or if you want to write us and say, hey, I'm a stupid person and I resent that remark, or I resemble that remark. I'm
a stupid person. I'm living an awesome life. You guys got it totally wrong.
So for all of those, send us email. thesimulationist@gmail.com is our email address. You can also go to our Facebook page and put comments on there. It's facebook.com/thesimulationist. And you can also go to the YouTube channel. It has the same audio file you're listening to now, just in YouTube format.
Handy, convenient YouTube, accessibility.
Handy static image that you can stare at and see our picture of our wizard.
Sometimes it's easier just to go hit YouTube and find it. I have songs, I got albums, sort of thing. But sometimes it's easier just to YouTube up. Okay, I'm looking for this band. There we go.
Yeah.
And it's easier than getting the CD, putting it in the driver, and starting up finding the right song.
Yeah, and I will read your comments there, and if you can. On all those social medias, whenever there's an option to share, on the YouTube channel, we would super much appreciate it if you did go ahead and share with other people that you happen to know. Or
if you had an argument about somebody who says, I wish I wasn't so smart, being stupid, would just be a lot easier, well, link this to them. Let them know, man, there's some fun advantages to being smart, and maybe they have to realize to maximize their intelligence potential.
Oh, and one other thing, social media-wise, is there is now a Patreon page for this show. So if you feel like you don't have to, this is still totally free. It's sort of a pay what you want. But if you feel like helping us out with the show, you can do a little pledge. Just go on to page. I can't remember what the address is now.
What's the minimum amount? Can I give just 2 cents a week?
Oh wow!
I want to put my 2 cents worth in. Ching ching. There we go.
The lowest I saw was $1 per episode on the options.
I suppose that's okay.
There might be a way to I might be able to tweak that page a little bit. I'm still working on it, still not complete. However, it is up there for anybody who wants to find us on Patreon. I think it's Patreon/thesimulationist, but just look do a search for the Simulationist on Patreon.
If you want to Patronize us,
yes, and that would be cool. I think that's all the social media. Oh, I'm on Twitter at SpaceBoot1.
That's the numeral 1.
SpaceBoot numeral 1 on Twitter.
Not once, just SpaceBoot 1.
Yes, episode 131. I don't know. That sounds right to me.
I do support the streamlining of the suffixes on there. This ist and erd thing is kind of weird. Yeah. And clearly a hallmark of an unproperly designed language.
Yeah, although I gotta say, sometimes I'm more of a fan of the quirky, weird conjugations, and
they do lend themselves to some fine wordplay if you can get it right. That said, it does make the language a little harder to learn.
Yeah.
And this is from a guy speaking English. That says a lot.
Okay. Well, is that everything? That's all we got?
I believe for this week.
Okay.
But I think we'll have something more in another 7 days.
Yeah, thank you all for listening, for sticking around for this long. A whole 100 minutes?
100 minutes and 55 seconds and counting.
Indeed. And I've been Josh Trelevin.
I've been Ryan Kirkby.
Send us money.